Hey geeks, welcome to another episode of GeekastX. This time we got a special episode. We got the E3 special. We're gonna chat about all the games coming out and what are they called? Not conference. What is it?
Yeah,
Panel.
conference.
That's what they're conference. Okay. And
No, they're
panels.
conferences.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. I'm Sean.
I'm Brian.
I'm Soberdwarf.
Yeah, we got the Soberdwarf here for a special episode. He's our
I'm your resident video game expert.
Yeah. There you go. Took the words out of my mouth. So let's start off. What was the first conference show? Microsoft, right?
Well, before we get started, we'll talk a little bit about E3 in general.
Shit.
There's some,
Go ahead. Yeah.
in case you don't know, E3 is the Electronic Entertainment Expo, which is kind of the yearly gaming convention. They've changed venues a few times, but it's typically in Los Angeles. And it's most likely the most important conference that's about video games. Tokyo has the Tokyo Game Show, which is more for the Japanese developed games, but in America it's always been E3. I believe E3 has been going on for I think the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they might have only missed 1 year, or they moved it, and it's gotten bigger and bigger every year until they scaled it back in 2007. Then it's kind of, after it was kind of like a reboot of it. And since then we've had the Consumer Electronics Show, we've had the European Computer Trade Show. We've also had a few others like the Game Developers Conference and a few others appear to kind of follow suit. So this year, the first one that started was Bethesda.
Mm-hmm.
Bethesda, as you most likely know them, is the people that made Skyrim, but they've had their hand in quite a few games.
They did
lately.
Did they do all the Elder Scrolls?
Yes.
Okay.
They've been doing it since Arena, and they're kind of, this is their first year that was actually a main conference, in one that would hold a development. Usually we would have companies like Capcom or Konami, but a lot of Americans showing this year besides, I believe, Ubisoft, Sony, Nintendo, and Square Enix, which we'll talk about later.
Okay. Sure. And what games what did they show this year? They showed definitely what was it? Dishonored 2? Was that theirs?
Dishonored 2. Bethesda's also showing Doom, and probably most surprising was Fallout 4.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's been kind of pining for Fallout 4. In fact, if you ever looked at their any of their YouTube videos where they release, hey, this is our new expansion for the Elder Scrolls, or this is our new update, all the comments just read Fallout 4, Fallout 4, Fallout 4. But was probably most surprising about the entire thing is that they not only released a trailer for Fallout 4 before E3. I believe it was a few days before. And when they announced it and showed all the stuff they were doing for Fallout 4, they actually announced it was going to be available in November. So no one knew that they were developing this game behind closed doors.
I want to get back to what was it? Dishonored 2. We talked about this a little bit earlier. It was I guess a lot of people compared it to like BioShock and what was the other game? I said BioShock and Assassin's Creed, but you suggested another.
I would
Skyrim?
I'd say and it's from the same company that did Skyrim.
Yeah,
So
I mean that wouldn't really count. But the funny thing is, like, all the things I've seen on this is like Dishonored, the game that out BioShocked BioShock.
right.
And I'm like, oh, I love BioShock so much. That's like,
Is that even a thing?
what?
Out Bioshocking Bioshock?
Oh yeah, definitely. I guess it is. I mean, I love BioShock. That's like my favorite game. It's such
Yeah.
a good story and like gameplay. But like Dishonored, I guess like I didn't like glance over it. I wanted to play it, but I never got around to it.
Uh-huh.
And it was actually free on Games for Gold on the Xbox Live Marketplace, and I didn't have Xbox Live Gold at the time, so I'm like, shit. So I passed it up, and I was like, no big deal. And then I guess like the sequel's coming out, and I guess like everyone's like all into it again and like hyping it up. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of ticked off. I missed it.
I have 2 copies of it. I bought the Game of the Year edition on Steam when they had the Steam sale this past week, and I've also got a copy on the PlayStation 3.
Oh, son of a bitch.
But it's actually a really good game. The main difference is that BioShock is kind of more of like an action shooter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're always expected to kind of go in, balls to the walls. With Dishonored, it's more of a stealth game than anything. You don't necessarily have to play it stealth, but a lot of the nuance is like, okay, it's like playing a rogue build in Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
You're sneaking around, you're teleporting different places to avoid sight.
Right. Those previews were pretty tight. Like as soon as like she walks into that building and then it starts coming apart. I've never seen something like that before. Usually like you just see like, I don't know, a bookcase move around or something, and like that kind of scenario like in a spy movie. But like the whole building started shifting. It's like, oh, whoa, this is new.
Right. And it has this very cool steampunk vibe.
Oh yeah, definitely. Fallout 4 kind of has that same kind of vibe. It's like post-apocalyptic.
Right. Yeah. Fallout 4 kind of has this retro futuristic. It's kind of like, okay, how they imagine the future back in the 50s. You know, atomic powered cars and still, you know, cathode ray tube monitors.
Did you see that they're coming out with a gimmick? It's a Pip Boy, and it goes on your wrist, and you can put your smartphone in.
I believe that is the pre-order bonus for Fallout 4. That's really cool. Typically, I'm give or take on pre-order bonuses, but something like that has me really interested.
Mm-hmm.
The main cool thing about Fallout 4 is this is kind of the first one that I believe the community is affectionately calling it like Fallout Minecraft edition, because you can like build your own small settlement.
That seems to be a big thing at this year's E3. A lot of build your own, whatever.
A lot of companies are trying to catch up to how Minecraft did it.
Mm-hmm. You know, Minecraft is like the #1 selling game.
Yeah,
of all time.
I believe it.
I believe it. The second one
You
is Tetris.
You do anything in that game.
Right.
You can build anything in that game.
And that's actually something I wanted to talk about in a video I want to do in the future, is like how Minecraft essentially changed gaming. Because you notice there's a lot more of a permanence factor with Minecraft. It's like, okay, typically a game you turn on, you play it a little bit, you turn off, and essentially, depending on where you stopped in the game, that's where you're going to continue off. You can say the same Minecraft, but essentially when you build something in Minecraft, it's always going to be there unless you tear it down.
Or blow it up.
Right, and it's more interesting to kind of come back to and be like, oh, hey, I did this. So I think Fallout 4 is trying to get the same suit. You know, it's like, oh, this town was nothing, and I built it up, and I got all these turrets to protect it from raiders, and they also released, I don't have an iPhone, but they released an iOS app or a small game, which I hear is pretty good.
What game was that?
I'm not really sure. I know it's a Fallout-based iOS game.
Is it the Pip Boy that they're coming out, where it has like a bunch of like mini games?
No, it's not that. It's kind of like you run your own vault and you have all these people in it. It's like kind of a simulation of it. It's like,
okay. Right.
I've seen a video of it, but I don't have an iOS device, unfortunately.
Neither do I. I have Android. What was the other one? Doom, you said?
Yeah, Doom.
Brian, you like Doom, right?
No, I like Diablo.
What?
That's...
I don't know.
that is a Blizzard. Yeah, not Bethesda.
So I guess, is that it for Bethesda?
Yeah. Doom.
Did they have anything for Elder Scrolls Online?
If they did, I don't remember it. A lot with these, I kind of was listening to them in the background as I was editing videos, which we'll kind of get into when we get into the Sony thing, because I got a story to tell on that one. But up next is actually Microsoft.
All right, yeah, Microsoft was a good one. I think theirs was the best this year. A lot of people give them crap, and they were all like, Sony was the best this year because they're making our dreams come true. But I think Microsoft did the best because they had like a lot of innovative stuff, such as
Right.
the backwards compatibility was a big software announcement, and that was pretty cool because now people
Right.
can.
That the backwards compatibility was probably Microsoft's biggest announcement, and a little bit of news came out after that, kind of dampened the enthusiasm regarding it. But overall, it was a really big announcement. So essentially, what they've decided to do is that they couldn't get every Xbox 360 game to be backwards compatible.
Oh yeah, that's the same thing with the regular Xbox,
Right.
like originally with the 360.
And with the 360 to normal Xbox, there was some compatibility. They used a lot of the same architecture in that system, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Xbox One and the Xbox 360 are completely different in a sense of architecture. They're still kind of PC architecture,
Mm-hmm.
but the way 64-bit to, it's kind of like how old games on PC don't necessarily work on newer computers.
Right, because you need
So-
however XP or higher or whatever.
Right. So what they've decided to do is actually do a bit of software emulation. So what they're doing is tricking Xbox One into sort of thinking it's a 360, and they're doing that by changing the code in some of the games of the original 360 game. Like
That's
so when
clever.
you put a 360 game in, you'll download a small patch and it will be like, okay, well, we run this little bit of code instead of the code you have in the game. So that way it makes the 360 game think it's an Xbox One game. But unfortunately, it has a bad side effect because it's not pure emulation.
Mm-hmm.
They have to change the code, which means a lot of the games that they want to do, they'll have to go out of their way to get the license for again. Because you're not using, if you go to play Deadpool on the 360, they'll have to get the approval of Marvel to go in, change a little bit of code, and run it, and that could be up to Marvel to be like, well, before you do that, we want a little bit of cash, or no, we don't want Deadpool.
See,
to
that
be
was a
out.
big thing. Remember when the Xbox came out, when the Xbox One came out, they're like, oh, you have to buy the license for every game. Everyone hated it, so they changed it, which was cool.
Right.
But then I feel like this backwards compatibility thing was a secret. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure they knew all along, but they kept it hush hush to see what, Sony would have, and then boom, drop the bomb and be like, what now, Sony? You
Right.
got nothing. This console war's been won.
It's kind of a little bit of payback for what happened at E3s prior, where Sony it essentially made Microsoft eat a little bit of crow, because everything Microsoft announced, Sony was just coming out and being like, "Oh, by the way, ours is going to be cheaper than there's."
Oh yeah, $100 cheaper.
Yeah, and we're going to support digital games, but we're also going to have physical games, whereas Microsoft wasn't going that route.
Mm-hmm. I thought originally the Xbox One was just going to be digital. Like, that's how you get games. You download.
Yeah,
them.
that was the original plan. There were still going to be physical copies, but the physical copy was going to essentially be a install disc with a license.
Okay.
So once you put it on your game, you couldn't take it out and let your friend borrow it and install it.
Right.
It's essentially going to be like how the PC market is now.
So really quick, what I thought another big thing was from Microsoft was the HoloLens. I don't know if you guys saw that presentation, but that literally blew my mind. Like, it's the future is now kind of shit. Like, it's literally it looked like it's like Jarvis. It's like Iron Man's like helmet. Like you see the 3D holograms.
I think would be the
around.
direction that, like, the little visor things.
Yeah. It's like, well, not. It's like the Oculus Rift, but it's lighter and smaller. It doesn't mess up your vision because it like projects onto what you're already seeing.
Right. Whereas the Oculus Rift is strictly a VR headset, the HoloLens is more of an augmented reality headset.
Exactly, and the Oculus Rift cuts you off. They tested out Minecraft, and that was pretty cool.
Right,
and
and
they showed like a bunch of like features where you could like voice command and like basically pinch the image to make it bigger and like lift it up. and like look underneath of it and all this kind of stuff and cope
Right.
with.
It is quite literally Legos that you don't need pieces for.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you saw the Halo 5 demonstration, but that was really cool too.
Right. There's a lot they can do with it. Where the thing is that I believe they showed it off in the best way possible.
Oh yeah.
The hardest thing to tell is how it's going to be when you actually sit down and put it on.
Yeah.
That's always. I've only had the experience with the Oculus Rift once, and it was one of the early ones when I went to a convention in Columbus. Someone had a little booth set up where they were showing it off, and it's really amazing. Like even for the early versions, it's really amazing. But the real trick that's going to be is trying to get it down to a price point where people will want to get it.
See, I think the problem would be the comfort, because don't both of them have some kind of like battery pack that you have to wear?
Yeah. From my experience with the Oculus Rift, you can tell it's on your face, but it wasn't like wearing a helmet. And wearing a motorcycle helmet, you can feel the weight of that. With the Oculus Rift, it was heavy, but I wore it for probably 15 minutes. I didn't get any fatigue.
I heard with the Oculus Rift, the problem is like you get headaches because of like the screen is like an inch from your eye, so your eyes are focusing.
Right. I didn't get a headache, but I did get a little bit of eye strain.
Okay.
And that was mainly it was an early dev kit version. A lot of it was the resolution isn't a good eye standard. It's like having a not even a 1080. It was like 720 right up to your eye and just trying to look at everything.
Now, from there, what were some other Microsoft things they revealed?
An exclusive that they have that was announced was Gears of War 4.
Yeah, I feel like that was like at the tail end. Was Hitman part of their thing? The new Hitman?
Possibly, but I don't believe that will be exclusive.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of games like Final Fantasy VII, I think, will start off exclusive to Sony, but then go cross-platform later.
It kind of depends on. There's some rumors going around. We'll kind of get to that when we hit the Sony conference. They also were the ones to announce Dark Souls 3 and another, which it's kind of weird because we just had Bloodborne, which kind of makes a Dark Souls series a bit annualized, like a yearly thing, like Assassin's Creed or some sort. But people who enjoy that series. I'm sure they're more than happy to get another one.
Right.
I'm kind of disappointed in the ads for the new one.
The new
the Assassin's Creed.
Oh no way! I'm totally for it. Like this is supposed to be like our Assassin's Creed Syndicate is supposed to like. I think it looks cool. Like they changed it to like back to like the original controls from like I guess the number 3 and 4-ish, and it's supposed to be like. People are calling this the redemption for Unity because Unity was so bad.
Right.
Yeah.
And this has to, in my opinion, this kind of has to be the redemption of it, because if we have something like Unity happy again, I don't know too many people that are going to stick around for this series, or at least not buy it on day one like they have been.
Right. That being said, I mean they better get their act together because the movie's going to be coming out soon, and if they want to like help sell the movie.
Well,
right.
No one even talks about Rogue. Like, there's a whole other game.
That's because that's right around the time they started going Xbox One exclusive.
Yeah.
And back to that thing, I wanted to say that Hitman, there's a new Hitman coming out, and that's supposed to be a redemption game for Absolution because a lot of people didn't like the controls in that one either, so they're making it more like the older ones, where more like I believe Hitman Contracts.
Right.
But it's supposed to be updated to be this kind of like graphics and other like new gameplay elements for multiplayer.
Yeah, and Hitman's always been, even with the bad controls of Absolution, I thought it was still a very strong point in the series.
I thought Absolution was really cool. Although for
Right.
like multiplayer, no one was ever on to like play my maps and stuff that I'd set up.
Right. Then finally, well, it wasn't the last part of Microsoft, but one thing I would like to point out would be the Rare Replay game that
Oh
is
yeah.
30 rare games, not value wise, but company wise, for $30, and that includes games like early Nintendo classics like Shake, Rattle, and Roll or Snake Rattle, I
Oh
believe.
my god, really?
Yeah,
Oh, I
uh,
love that game.
RC Pro Am, as well as like Conker's Bad Fur Day, which Conker's Bad Fur Day alone for the 64 goes anywhere from 80 to like $130. So
Wow.
for 30 itself, I believe, I don't know if that's going to sell any Xbox Ones, but people that have Xbox Ones and are a big fan of Old Rare are really going to enjoy that.
I was a big fan of Toe Jam and Earl. I guess they got their own Kickstarter.
Yeah, they had
Yeah.
the maker of Toe Jam and Earl. Uh, Sega wouldn't do it, so he eventually wanted to get that Kickstarter. I don't know if it. I know I've seen it. I never checked
What
to
was
see
that?
if
What
it.
was that one game? Mighty Number 9. That game got kickstarted at
Yeah.
E3, and it met. I got $2 million in 9 hours.
Yeah. I think it was Shenmue that I got. Shenmue 3 was the one that got $2 million in 9 hours. That broke the record.
Really? Okay, I thought it was the Mighty Number 9.
No, my number 9 was the first. I think that was 1 million in a day.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, it's
Um,
fine.
So, all right. Does that wrap up Microsoft?
Yeah,
And we already talked about how they're like, hey, we have another Gears. Like, they just tagged that on at the very end. Like,
right.
just so you know.
Which is the one thing I noticed is how dark it is. Watching the gameplay, but it's kind of neat
Was that gameplay or was that just like a cinematic?
No, that was gameplay. There was a big focus on not focusing on cinematic trailers. A lot of gameplay this year.
Good. I like that.
So after that we had EA.
I didn't want
That
I
Battlefront,
got
yo.
nothing. What is it, Madden?
A lot of FIFA.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
A lot of sports games this year, and I'm not, I don't mind people who mind the sports games, but just not me. Two things, as it was mentioned, we have Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront.
Oh yeah, that was the only thing. Okay, yeah, Battlefront.
Yeah.
That trailer was so good.
It was sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I loved it. Like I'm like watching it, and the cool thing it was gameplay footage. Again, yeah, you did mention that. So
right.
the gameplay footage, like it was really cool. There were a couple of Easter eggs in there. There was a Wilhelm scream.
To interrupt you, I think the one thing if that game will do right is the sound. Just listening to that, it does sound like you're in a Star Wars film.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then like the part where like it's going like oh let's take out the AT-AT and then the switch from one person to the other, and then the switch from like being on the field to being in a vehicle, and then all of a sudden like they're in these trenches and this guy hops out, and all of a sudden you hear it come in like the Imperial March, and you see the guy getting choked out, turns around, and then you see Vader, and you just like and like that lightsaber like came out, like the lightsaber coming out quickly was what like gave me chills, where it's like, oh, this guy's gonna get a whooping, and then all of a sudden like it switches to Luke's point of view, and then they go at it, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna be good.
Now it is EA, so I'm a little bit worried that because EA has a tendency to trim up content and kind of release it in expansions, and
that was some of the flack it was getting. A lot of like when they announced it and they announced some of the stuff, like the specs on it, a lot of people gave it shit because they said like, hey, you'll be able to do this, but you have to pay extra
right.
for this
storyline.
And
they announced like airship, like space battles are going to cost extra or be like expansion, which that's kind of EA's business model. They've done it with Battlefield 4, 3 and 4, which is their Call of Duty. But I think Battlefront will probably be their rather than trying to compete with Call of Duty, I think maybe Battlefront might get them an edge. Speaking of edge, talking about segues, we have Mirror's Edge. That was also announced.
Was that EA? Ubisoft?
Yep, EA.
Did it change license?
I don't think Mirror's Edge was Ubisoft. I might be wrong on that.
I was gonna segue into Street Fighter V being pay to play.
Let's see. No, it is EA Digital Illusion CE.
All right. Let's go with the Mirror's Edge.
I
didn't catch that. I missed that part. I missed that announcement.
Now, the original Mirror's Edge it's essentially a parkour game.
Parkour.
First person parkour. Now, what they kind of explained, at least the info that I've seen come out, this one's going to be different. It's going to be more of an open world game. So rather than having levels that you kind of race through, it's more of a skate park.
Oh.
So, you'll have to be like, okay, I need to go from this building to this building. And
yeah, the cool part about that game was the HUD. Like, there was none. There wasn't a HUD. There was no HUD. And, like, the way, like, it was, like, subtle how, like, oh, you can climb on this because it's highlighted in red.
Now, a few really cool things that they're changing, at least I think they're cool, is that with this version, or with this, iteration of the game, there isn't going to be too much gunplay. There was a little bit, and there it got criticism because it really kind of slowed the game down at that point. And the combat's supposed to be fast, so it's going to focus a lot more on the parkour. Some people might like the gunplay. I didn't really care for it, but
yeah, neither did I. Because didn't you get rated at the end? So like, if you killed people, it took your rating down.
Right, and it kind of slowed the game down. The whole game was kind of about, it was essentially a speed run. It's like, okay, I want to get from here to here. What's the fastest and coolest way I can do that?
Right, run.
And then when you had a bunch of SWAT people come with guns, you had to run, disarm one, shoot the rest before you can continue on.
Oh, right.
So that's really all I had for EA. So that'd make the next one Ubisoft.
All right, and that would we already covered Assassin's Creed Syndicate.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed was their big showing. Now for the Ubisoft presentation itself, it was interesting. Not necessarily a good presentation, but I can kind of say that about most of the presentations of this year's E3. A lot of focus on Tom Clancy stuff this year. Trying to think in particular. I know one they were talking about is that you're essentially playing a team that's going up against a drug cartel. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be more of an open world, like, rather than like, okay, here's your team, this is the level you gotta do. It's supposed to be more of a, okay, well, we need to get this guy so we can either go in stealthily and take him out that way, or we could go in guns blazing, or hey, if we just kidnap this guy's truck, they're gonna think that this drug guy is trying to cheat him out of money, so the cartel will kill him that way. So
that's their latest one.
That was one of the few big ones that they did.
Okay.
They also announced a new South Park game.
Oh yeah. Hold on. The title it's hilarious. It's
yeah. I'll let you say.
Wait, hold on. What is the first game?
It's South Park: The Stick of Truth.
Yeah, it picks up right after the Stick of Truth, and if you guys have played that, it was a really good game. And the Trey Parks and the other dude were all about like, hey, this is the last game we're making, and they always go back. Like whenever they say this is the last whatever,
right?
They always go back on what they said. And I guess during the development of that Stick of is it Truth?
Mm-hmm.
During the development of Stick of Truth, they were like, hey, we got a really good formula for video games, why don't we try it again? And they're coming out with this new one, and instead of being based on like fantasy games, it's going to be based on superhero stuff. And
right.
It's called South Park
The
fractured butthole.
Yeah. Really clever name.
Yeah, like fractured BUT HW. Wait, what do you no?
WHOLE.
Yeah, WHOLE. You got me messed up. Why'd you say H? Okay. Whew.
But so that's probably honestly that was kind of my highlight. I really like the Stick of Truth.
Mm-hmm. My
So
favorite part in that game was when you get to choose your name, and he's like, "What? Wait, what do they choose for you?"
Well, Cartman's like, that name's stupid. You're called this.
Yeah, you're like, put in your name, and he goes, "That's weird." Douche face. Are you sure you want to be called douche face?
You're like, no. He's like, okay, douche face, whatever.
Yeah. I can't remember if that was the name though. I knew it was something hilarious. Man.
No, yeah, it's been a while since I played it, but that was.
So after that, what do we have up next?
We have Sony's, and I actually have a bit to say about Sony's.
Yeah, Sony had some of the good stuff.
Right, Sony kind of went pretty much broke on trying to win this E3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. So the first big thing they announced was that The Last Guardian still exists. Last Guardian is kind of...
Brian, hold on. Do you know what The Last Guardian is?
I do not.
It is the third game in the series. Like, all right, so you know the game Ico?
What is it?
Ico?
Yeah.
And then after came Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
And this is the next one, The Last Guardian.
Oh.
So, like, you play as this kid who is like a pet Falcor, but instead of looking like Falcor, it looks like a dog with, like, you know, horns and wings, and it has, like,
it's like a dragon.
Feet. Yeah, some kind of weird creature. It's huge, though.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it looks really good. I mean, it hasn't really looked too much different since when they announced it in 2007.
They definitely got an update. Like, you know how, like, the old-fashioned, like, hair
right
looked on video games, where it was, like, basically, like, layered, thin layered of, like, tissue paper. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
But in the newer updated version, it's like individual hairs.
And yeah, and this was originally it was announced by Square Enix, I believe, who were like, "Oh yeah, we're working on it." Then that was in 2007, and you know, after a while, it's like, "Oh well, we're gonna release it in 2011."
Oh yeah,
holy
it's
crap!
been
The thing is huge.
6 years in the making.
Mm-hmm. And then it kept suffering delays, and it was like, well, we don't know if we can develop it for the PS3, so we're canceling it. Then they're like, no, we're gonna move it to the PlayStation 4. Then didn't hear anything about it. Now it's going to be hopefully released in 2016.
Oh yeah. And then after that, yeah, it's really cool. It looks like I mean, I loved Shadow of the Colossus. I played a little bit of Ico.
Really good.
So if I had a PS4, I'd definitely play this. But
I imagine there are people buying PS4s now for
just because of this game. Final Fantasy.
Now I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more like Ico than it would be Shadow of the Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
Since Shadow of the Colossus was kind of more their action, you know, hey, we gotta find these colossi and take them down.
Yeah, do they have like a story for the Last Guardian, or is it just like so far all the previews and stuff I've seen, just a dude hanging out with a giant beastly looking thing?
Well, the most supposedly they're all loosely connected.
Mm-hmm.
Such as, you know, Shadow of Colossus, I believe the prequel to Ico. But they're all kind of like, oh, okay, so...
He kind of looks like a hyena.
Oh, yeah, it does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
With wings and horns.
So, overall, I believe that there is usually a story, but the way they've always told their game has been a very minimalistic kind of storytelling anyway.
Oh, yeah, I remember in Shadow of the Colossus, they're like, here's a sword, point it to the light, kill these bitches, get your girl back.
Right.
I don't think the main character even talked, did he?
No.
He was more like Link, would he be like,
Yup!
Yeah. Right, and Ico was pretty much the same thing. It's like, hey, here's this cute girl. You're a demon boy. get out of this dungeon together.
Also, you have an awesome looking poncho.
And,
Oh yeah, this guy has a poncho too, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little bit.
Like a toga.
They like their ponchos.
Now, my biggest worry is that's going to have another sad ending. I don't know if I can handle those anymore.
Oh, dude. I like a sad ending. I was talking to my wife about. I wish they'd make more Disney films with where the hero loses.
That's the thing. Both Ico and Shadow Colossus had really sad endings. I'm not gonna.
Shadow Colossus. That kicked me in the stomach. And like spat on my neck. That was so sad.
Right in the feels.
Right.
Right. And
like all that work.
And as I said, I'm gonna avoid spoilers, but they've always, and they're really powerful too. It's like you spent so much time, and it's like, oh man, what? Oh no! After all that, and that's really amazing in storytelling because, as I said, there's no talking, and most of it's
right,
just
yeah. It's just a lot like an I Am Legend kind of how like Will Smith, he's acting by himself. So
right.
It's minimalistic storytelling, and it's still you're able to get these emotion across, and like you build a connection with this character, and through the music and stuff, and like him, defeating these huge beasts, and then at the end you get that disconnect.
His Fresh Prince music.
Yeah.
So The Last Guardian was Sony's first big announcement. The second biggest announcement was Shenmue 3. Now
I know nothing of this.
Right. And for people, I know a lot about it because I was really into gaming I've been into gaming since the Nintendo era, but the Sony PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast era has been, probably one of the most memorable in my opinion, just because that's kind of like that when I was growing up. So Shenmue is originally started off on the Sega Saturn as like a game called Virtua Fighter RPG, and it just kind of slowly got bigger and bigger until it was like, oh hey, I want to make this story. And Yu Suzuki, the guy who developed Shenmue and produced it, he wanted to do this in 6 chapters. 6 chapters to tell the story. So in 2000, I believe it was November 2000, we got chapter 1 for the Sega Dreamcast. Then in, I believe it was 2003 or 4, it was a little bit off, we got the sequel that was on the original Xbox. Then after that, nothing. We didn't hear anything for almost 14 years of what the fate of this supposed to be 6 chapter series is going to be. And now as Shenmue is like always been, it's kind of been a very vocal minority of people. It's like, hey, Shenmue 3, where's Shenmue 3? We want Shenmue 3.
Was it made by what's his name, Gabe?
No. The
dude, the Half-Life 3 dude, you can't make Half-Life 3.
Right. It's a little bit more a heart-wrenching story because the guy who designed it wanted to make it. He could just never find people who wanted to help him publish it because it's by no means a small game. It cost the original like 47 million to make.
Damn.
And he would, shop it out to producers and such. They'd be like, okay, we'll do it, but you have to add zombies, or we'll do it, but it has to have guns in it. And that just wasn't his story.
That's kind of like the Josh Trank dude who wanted to do Chronicle 2, but the studio's like, oh, it has to be like this. And he's like, no,
right.
Dude, it's my idea or nothing at all.
Right. And that is the artist's plight.
That's why George Lucas made the awesome deal he did where he gets the sequel rights and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And original Star Wars is like, hey, we're doing this to fight, this how the big studios are doing it.
Yeah, the studio big heads.
Right. And now it's owned by Disney. So
yeah, exactly.
So Yu Suzuki.
I mean, I'd sell if I had a cool idea, I'd sell it for $5 billion.
Right. Well, $5 billion. That's hard to, you can make a lot more smaller ideas with that $5 billion. So Yu Suzuki wanted to make this. He just couldn't find anyone to do it. So the game was lost to time. It was like, okay, we're never getting Shenmue 3. Whereas Half-Life 3 could easily be made tomorrow. It's just no one's doing it.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So they announced Shenmue 3, and they announced that it was going to be on Kickstarter. And we kind of mentioned this earlier, that it had a $2 million goal that it reached within 9 hours. Which is, I know that
what crowdsourcing can do, right?
Right. And granted, it's been said that not necessarily it's going to be made with $2 million. Like, it'll be made, but it won't be his vision.
Aww.
So he's, but there, there's rumors circulating around that Sony is going to back it. They just wanted to see if people would put their money where their mouth is. And
right.
if there was going to be enough people to be like, okay, well, we'll help you make this game, but we're going to do the marketing for it. So, but before that, we want to see if there's actually, going to be people that help this. And looking at it now, it has 23 days to go, and they're at 3.6 million.
Oh my goodness! I thought about wouldn't it be a cool idea to fund a movie that way? And then I saw the dude who, that Russian dude who tried to get his money through Kickstarter, and nobody wanted to fund his movie, and he started talking crap about the Avengers and Joss Whedon.
Oh, would that be Uwe Boll?
Yeah, there you go. That's his name.
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
I think he's German.
Oh, German? Did I say Russian? Sure.
Yeah. No, I mean
the European dude.
Yeah.
Bases covered. All right. So that's the end of Sony?
No, that's so.
Oh, what about we got to do? Go ahead and say it.
All right. So I'm gonna give a little backstory to how this. As I said, I was working on editing a video, and I've been trying to avoid spoilers, but I seen it on Twitter that, hey, this can't be true. Like, oh my God. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to spoil it for myself. So I'm going to turn off my phone and wait till I get home. I started editing videos. I had the Sony conference in the background. And I was like, I'm not even watching. I'm just hearing it. And I all of a sudden hear this familiar soundtrack. I'm like, wait a sec. And I close what I was doing. I flip on, turn on the YouTube on the main screen. I'm like, wait, no. Then, without really saying it, but saying it, Square Enix is remaking Final Fantasy VII.
Oh yeah, my favorite part of that trailer is we're like, oh, is this Kingdom Hearts? But then they're going through it, and then you see the Buster Blade, and then it ends, and they don't even give you the title; they just give you the Comet logo, and you're like, oh shit.
Right. Yeah, really cool redesign of it. And I was a little worried because I do have concerns about this. And they could be saying, hey, yeah, we're making your favorite game, Final Fantasy VII, Dirge of Cerberus.
Yeah. Wasn't that I thought that was 8.
No, it's Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, that's funny.
It was Dirge
of Cerberus. I loved the concept of it, but that game was shit.
Yeah, it was a bad execution of a possibly good game.
Right, it's like, oh, check out all these awesome cutscenes, and you're playing the game, like, why can't I do flips and shit like that?
Right. So now there's a little bit of concern I have with this, but I want to kind of talk about the good side first. Now, Final Fantasy VII is important for a variety of reasons. One could say that it is what made the Sony PlayStation. A lot of people, whereas Halo was kind of Microsoft's Xbox killer app, where it's like, if it wasn't for Halo, we might not have a Microsoft at this point. They could have stopped at the original Xbox and be like, nope, we didn't do well enough. It's not worth it. Because before Halo, Microsoft wasn't really selling units. Sony was selling units.
That's right, because the Asians didn't like how big it was, the Xbox.
Right. And this was during an era where Japanese development was still huge. It was still like the biggest thing. This was really before we had, Activision and Call of Duty and any other companies like, Bethesda had Morrowind around that time, but it wasn't, that was PC and it just kind of got ported over to Xbox.
Right.
So now, as I said, Sony was selling Sony PlayStation units and fairly well, but Final Fantasy VII, with its ad campaign and all that, was what made people like, oh my god, I gotta get this. It was kind of deceptive advertising because they showed their full motion video, the very elaborate cutscene that you could never see on a Super Nintendo, and it looked clear and crystal, unlike the Sega CD. So,
go ahead, sorry.
And it's a lot of people's first experience in RPGs, and it's actually probably a lot of people's first experience in gaming in general. It was one of the very first few games that's just like mass market appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So since then, it was probably around PlayStation 3 when Square Enix kind of released their Final Fantasy VII tech demo. It was like, this is what it would look like if it was on PS3. So everyone's, was like, oh my god, this is it. They're remaking Final Fantasy VII. They're remaking, this has got to be it. Then Square Enix like, no, we're not. It was just a tech demo. So since then, everyone's like, hey, are you going to make a Final Fantasy VII remake? We really want it. And Square has gone from saying, no, we're not, it's not in the plan, to outright trolling people, because last year, might have been a full year ago, that they had a Sony press conference where Squaresoft came in and it's like, everyone, we're remaking Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 4. And everyone's like, holy crap, really? And it's like, yes, we're porting over the PC version, which the PC version is just a upgraded port of the PlayStation version.
I'm sorry. I know we already talked about Ubisoft. Did we talk about For Honor? Did you see any of that?
Ah, there you go. Yeah, that's right. I couldn't remember who made that. I was thinking that and Tomb Raider, but yeah, For Honor looks so good. It looks like Dynasty.
Yeah.
Was it Dynasty Warriors? The game where there's like a shit ton of like guys on the field, and you're like, oh, let's do it, bitch. And
I really liked the presenter for Honor. That guy had a lot of charisma.
Yeah, that game looks so good. That and the fact that like you can be like a knight, you can be a samurai, and it looks a lot like Dynasty and Bushido Blade. And
Bushido Blade.
Yeah, it's like this game where you have to like it's one strike kills, right? But you have to like watch your stance and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
like it's a really interesting kind of like fighting style.
And there's a really if you guys like Bushido Blade, Soberdwarf did a sweet video on it. If you go check out his YouTube channel.
It's not done yet, right? Because I was going to start putting out videos, but I wanted, because I have a full-time job essentially. However, I've been working a lot of time, and I didn't want to start doing videos up until I knew I'd have free time to do follow-ups, because it's really disappointing for fans. You're like, here's a video, and I'm gone from the internet for 3 months.
Right. That's yeah, I know that feels, bro.
But hey.
Well, anyway, I got a sneak peek at that Bushido Blade video, and it was awesome.
Well, hopefully by the first week of July, I'll have that wrapped up and put out, and preferably a video on its sequel too. Can
you give us like a quick explanation of like the gameplay and like how that works, like in correlation with For Honor, like just the whole like you have to have different stances and stuff and that aspect of it.
I'm not sure how, because there hasn't been too many details on For Honor whether it's going to be using something like that. However, if it is, the way Bushido Blade work is that rather it's a fighting game, but as opposed to having a health bar where, hey, I punched you or and stuff like that, it's like, oh, in a typical fighting game like Soul Calibur, I just hit you over the head with a great sword, and that means you lose a quarter of your health. Whereas in a game like Bushido Blade, it's, hey, I hit you in the head with your great sword, you're dead, game over, I win.
It's more realistic that way.
Right. It was at the time the most realistic fighting game, and it probably still holds that claim today. So, I'll point you over to my YouTube video at the end, or give an update when it is finished.
All right. Well, let's head over to the Nintendo stuff now, if we can.
Yep.
All right. So this year they had a few cool things. They briefly mentioned the Nintendo NX. What?
Right. Nintendo. I'm going to say that Nintendo had probably the most entertaining presentation.
Yeah, but they always do the same shit every year.
Well, Nintendo's changed in probably the past 3 years since they've started doing Nintendo Direct. Nintendo Direct is essentially a monthly E3 from Nintendo. They kind of like, hey, this is what's coming out in the next few months. Here's why you should get excited over it.
But the big cool thing, like the way that they started it off with the puppets to introduce Star Fox.
Mm-hmm.
That was really good.
Yeah.
When he's all like, "My body is ready."
I wholeheartedly feel that they should just make a game on Reggie Fils-Aimé, because he's probably the best character Nintendo's ever created.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Star Fox. And that gameplay footage was really cool.
Right.
I was never like a big Star Fox fan, but the fact that like it's not a remake or anything. They're calling it Star Fox Zero because it's supposed to be like his own standalone story.
Right.
But like at the beginning of his career, right?
It starts. Yeah. There isn't a whole lot of information. Nintendo announced that they were making it last E3, but there was no gameplay footage.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that like you can get the what's the ship called? The R ship or
the R-Wing?
Yeah, the R-Wing. There you go. The fact that the R-Wing they included the fact that it transforms and stuff, which was an original idea for Star Fox 2 that never made it.
Yep, exactly. Well, I mean, Star Fox 2 was like pretty much done, but it came out right before the release of the Nintendo 64. And they were like, "Nah, we don't. Nintendo 64 is going to be better, and we're releasing Star Fox 64. We don't want to like oversaturate or taint the market."
Right.
But so it's gonna. They haven't released a whole lot on Star Fox other than it's the gameplay itself. They showed it very, very simplistic, but kind of colorful and interesting visuals. It's almost, to me, it looked almost like a very basic cell shading to it.
Oh yeah.
But I think what's most interesting about that is with the way it works is that it's the Wii U, so you have your Wii U pad. You also have the screen, so I guess.
Oh yeah, this was very interesting. The cockpit thing.
Right, you can look at your cockpit, but if you like wanted to see what was beside your ship or behind it.
Well, yeah, hold on. It was your Wii pad was you inside the cockpit, and then the screen was the third person. So you can like look around you in the cockpit, or you could look up at the screen and see it third person and see all the way 360 around you. And they did that so that they could cut down on the buttons that they used.
Right, and I think that's going to be really interesting. I'm sure the game's still kind of early in development. Overall, though, I've been excited for Star Fox since probably Star Fox 64. Nintendo released Star Fox Assault for the GameCube, the GameCube, which was interesting but not necessarily a fun game. I think they gave it to another studio and they tried to Haloize it, and it didn't really work out for them.
That's unfortunate because Halo is awesome.
Yeah, but Halo is awesome because it in itself is Halo, not.
Oh yeah. You can't polish a turd and expect it to be a diamond.
Because it was like, oh hey, Star Fox Assault. We have these open world where you can.
This is Halo with a Star Fox mask.
You can land the R-Wing and get in your tank. And it's like, so you're telling me I can get out of my Banshee and hop in a Warthog.
Right, exactly. And then after that, they... Go ahead.
They showed a little bit of Mario Maker.
Yes, there you go, Mario Maker. Didn't they change the title to Super Mario Maker?
I'm not really sure. I've seen it referred to as both. I just kind of call it Mario Maker because I like the alliteration of it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. Mario Maker, it looks really cool. It's a Mario game where you get to build your own levels in the either retro style of the NES or like the Super NES.
Like immediately, I'm reminded of Little Big Planet.
Mm-hmm.
However, what they kind of did with Mario Maker is a lot more interesting to me
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just like, okay, well, here you can make your own little Mario asset game. It's like, no, you can put a bullet bill on a turtle and have it move as like a moving tank.
Right, you can make it as hard as you want and as easy as you want, and
Right.
you like upload it on the internet, or not the internet, on the whatever that marketplace is called, and you can have
Well,
people play it.
I mean, that's technically the internet, but you can make whole levels. You can make like, oh, okay, this is going to just be a fun looking level, or I'm going to make the toughest level ever.
Right, yeah. Brian, did you see that?
No.
You didn't see the Mario Maker?
I missed that one.
It was
So-
really good.
I saw the Zelda one. I saw the Star Fox, and the Yoshi one.
Oh, is it Yarn Yoshi? Yoshi Yarn?
Yeah, Woolly World. Yoshi Woolly World.
Yoshi Woolly World. Yep.
That seems
Then-
like
Go ahead.
remember they had that Kirby game where he was made of yarn?
Kirby Epic Yarn. Yeah.
There you go. Cameo, I can sense it now.
Well, they got an interesting concept for Yoshi Woolly World, whereas if you put any of your amiibos on it, you get a Yoshi, but it has the amiibo you're using's face.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can have like a. However, speaking of amiibos, I believe that Nintendo and Skylanders are kind of working together for a game.
Yeah, they came out with 2 new amiibos that will be able to cross-platform.
Right.
It's was it Bowser and hold on, don't tell me, Donkey Kong.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so and they have a little base, and it's kind of like those hero clicks, where like
Yeah.
you click it to one side, it's an amiibo, click it to the other, it's a Skylander.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. However, I'm kind of disappointed with Nintendo with its amiibos. Not because I don't think it's a good concept, but the fact is that even after knowing how much they're selling, there is still a major shortage on amiibos. I kind of made the joke to one of my friends is when they were talking about Yoshi's Woolly World, they had one of the developers in front of all these Yoshi amiibos on a table. And the joke was like, yep, that's all they're making of the amiibos. That's a whole stock right there.
Right,
And
the peg warmers.
There's only about 40 of them. My sister's really big on collecting amiibos, and every time they come out with new ones, she just gets more and more disheartened because it just means more she's not getting.
My younger brother, he's into collecting those the Disney Infinity, those figures.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Shorty.
Yeah. All right. So after that, what do we have?
Square Enix, which was
Well, we were on Nintendo stuff.
that's unless
We got Triforce Heroes,
oh yeah, Triforce Heroes.
and that looked really
Is
interesting.
that like
'cause-
Hyrule Warriors?
No,
No. It's Triforce Heroes. It's like Four Swords. Do you remember that for the Minish Cap? Or no. Link
No,
to
it
the
was-
Past.
Link to the Past, Four Swords. They also had a GameCube version of it and a 3D, or yeah, I believe it was a DS or 3DS.
I think it was
remake of it.
DS. Yeah, it's like the Four Swords, but it's with 3 characters, and it's in the art style of A Link Between Worlds, and then it's yeah, you instead of like being competitive, like who gets the most rupees or who does this the fastest, it focuses on co-op play, like solving
Right.
puzzles together and all that kind of stuff.
The biggest thing that they were touting was the totem system, where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you lift
Jump on
You
my
look-
shoulders.
this link up, then that link lifts you guys up, and that way you can attack bosses at certain heights.
And not only that, they were also toting something about in this city that it takes place in is it's something about fashion. So the way you get power ups is through having certain suits, and it's kind of like Mario in the sense where like if you put this suit on, you have bombs. If you sit this suit on, you
You get your arrows.
yeah,
and
you have like more arrows than like the other guys.
then it'll be like, well, okay, so this guy sets the bomb down. This link shoots an arrow and launches the bomb across the map to hit a switch, and yeah, I'm sure they're going to incorporate team play elements like that.
Yeah, I think it looks cool. I mean, I'm a big Zelda fan, so I'll play all of their games.
I'm not sure if this is going to be as big as release as, say, Link Between Worlds was.
Right.
This might be, Four Swords is kind of like a budget title. It's like, oh, it's not a big epic quest, but it is something
I feel like wasn't Four Swords just like a add-on kind of? Because like it was basically the multiplayer for the Link to the Past. But I mean, I never got to play it because I didn't know anyone else had the game. So
right. That was kind of the same thing with me. I got the one on GameCube only after I convinced.
Didn't it come out with Twilight Princess?
No.
It was a standalone.
It was a standalone.
Okay.
But the gimmick behind that was use the Game Boy Advanced Link cables to the GameCube.
Right. Okay.
So you would all have your own Game Boy and look on your own screen while. So like you went inside a dungeon, you'd be playing on your screen, and if you're out in the overworld, you'd be up on the top map.
Interesting. I was really disappointed that there was nothing for Zelda U.
Right. Actually, I would say Nintendo this year, even though they had probably the most fun and entertaining one, it was actually the least one filled with news. Like, there wasn't really anything that we didn't already know.
I didn't know about the Metroid. That was really surprising.
Right. I believe it's like Metroid Federation something.
Yeah, that and then that game, like sports ball.
Bomb Blast, which is kind of like
Blast.
Which is kind of like Crossfire. And there's actually
the new stylized version. I don't like how it looks. How they're like short and fat, and they look like,
Oh, it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to be like a small little thing. Like, okay, this is Metroid Prime Pinball.
It looks like that Gundam SD.
Right, Gundam Super Deformed.
Yes.
There's actually a petition, or was at least, to get Nintendo to cancel that game. Of course, online rage and all that, and just like, oh, we don't want Nintendo to make this game. They're ruining Metroid, and it's like, at least they're thinking about Metroid. There's some games Nintendo probably hasn't thought about in decades.
Right. Also, up next, really quick, we had the Smash Bros. New Smash Bros. Game featuring some characters from Street Fighter.
Yeah, Ryu.
Oh, and who's the guy from Fight Night 2?
Little Mac. Or no.
Yeah.
Punch Out, not Fight Night.
Or Punch Out, that's it.
All I know is that Ryu, like when you're playing as Ryu, if you do his original combos for the original Street Fighter game, his attacks are more powerful.
Yeah.
So like if you do the original down back A whatever for the Hadouken, it comes.
Hadouken.
Quarter sword fork gold punch it. Yeah, you get the more powerful one.
I always thought if he was asking people if they were Ken.
Yeah.
Are you Ken?
Oh, I get it. That's funny. How you doing? Are you Ken?
They had the spinning kick. Would you like some pound kick?
That's a good
I
one.
can never understand what he was saying.
Oh, and the funny thing is, also, if you do the uppercut move, it's an instant kill.
Huh.
Instant knockout. They don't really kill in Smash Bros, but whatever.
Right. Kind of cry.
Instant unalive them.
Yes, instant unalive, man.
Kind of like how Luigi's probably works. Like if you hit it just in a sweet spot, they go flying off.
Right. Get a smash.
Speaking of Ryu, kind of going back to Street Fighter V.
Pay to play Fighter 5.
Yeah, which we're not sure if it's going to be pay to play in the sense of like, because I believe Microsoft's Killer Instinct kind of did this thing where it's like, okay, well, the game itself is free, and you can play as like the free character for the day, or you could pay like $5 to unlock the character to play anytime you want.
Mm-hmm. See, I think what I heard was it's going to come with like Ryu and Ken, and then to unlock everyone else, you have to pay for them.
Right, and depending on how the price point is for it, I mean, Street Fighter V is probably Capcom's biggest game since Street Fighter 4, since Capcom hasn't really been doing too much else.
You know, it'd be a funny special move You know how like in Smash Bros, like when they have like for certain characters you can play in their like element, like their level.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be cool if like for Street Fighter, there's like a beat up car and you have to like kick it,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
and then at the end someone's like, "My car."
Oh, my car.
Yes, exactly.
Uh,
Do you ever see
So-
that? Do you ever see that video where they like, someone lost their soccer ball under it and they're sitting there kicking under the car, trying to get it out? I think that covers Nintendo, right?
yeah.
wanna, like-
That's
Get some mentionable games. I thought, all right, there's this new game, Dreams, coming out.
well. There was 2 more conferences, but we can kind of go through them real quick since there was a Square Enix conference, which they kind of reiterated about Final Fantasy VII and The Last Guardian.
Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, and
Oh, Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming out?
Yeah, it finally,
well,
finally
it's
coming
now in
out.
development. They
I thought that was
have not-
gameplay footage. It looked really cool.
It probably was gameplay footage, but according to the way they worded it, they said Kingdom Hearts 3 is now in development, which means they probably weren't working on it before. So it could be another 2 or 3 years before we see the final release.
I don't know why we don't have like Kingdom Hearts 8. That game was so awesome.
Yeah, I hate how, like, you're like, oh, hey, look, while you're waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3, why don't you play Remix? I'm like, no, I don't want to play that shit.
2.0.
Kingdom Hearts 3D, Dark Dreams denied. or
Yeah, like,
whatever.
they're teasing us.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 3, DS.
Yes.
They announced Just Cause 3,
Oh, yeah, and wasn't there another one, Deus Ex? Deus Ex?
Deus
I
Ex
know there's
Machina.
another Mass Effect.
from EA. We didn't mention that one.
There were some
Uh,
really cool like indie games coming out that looked like cool. Like Dreams was like this game where you can it's supposed to simulate kind of like how it is when you dream, like how you can like lucid dream and build things, and like it's basically like an open-ended art platform where like you let's say I built like a clay dude and put him out there. You can go in and add to it, and then like I can come back to it and be like, oh, that looks cool, and then change something, and then you can animate it and all that kind of stuff. It was really
Yeah.
cool. I'm not really sure what it is, but it looks like some kind of animating software or
Yeah.
something.
A lot of probably the biggest releases I played in a while has been from indie games, not necessarily AAA development.
I know for PlayStation there was this one game called Tearaway where it's like an all paper world
Yeah,
that looked really
that-
cool.
I have that on my Vita.
Oh, this was a different one though. Sony really, it seems like they're dropping the Vita.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the Vita ever really took off for them. They were really hoping that they can get third-party developers behind it, which is upsetting because the Vita is actually. I have the Nintendo 3DS XL, and I also have a PlayStation Vita. In terms of what I like better, I love the Vita in almost every aspect, other than the games, which because Sony released 4 or 5 games for it, any other third-party developers like, nah, we're gonna either port it over to the Vita and not really make games for it, or we're just not gonna bother with it at all.
I know it had a lot of Assassin's Creed games for it.
Yeah, none of those were really amazing. Like the one I've seen play, it's more of a 2D platformer than it is like an actual Assassin's Creed. There was, I believe it was Liberation, which is kind of more of a true Assassin's Creed, but it wasn't nearly as impressive.
I know that I don't know. Speaking of Assassin's Creed, they're coming out with a new pirate game. Not Assassin's Creed, but some company. It looked really cool.
Right.
It reminds me of Assassin's Creed 4, but it's supposed to be like the best pirate mechanics in any game ever, like better than Sid Meier's even.
Yeah, and that's gonna be tough.
Yeah, I know, right? And then
Because-
another indie game that everyone was raving about. It wasn't really like a game. It was more like one of those arcade games. Like an app kind of. I think it's called Cuphead.
Yeah.
And it's
Cuphead
like
was
it's like stylized as like a 1940s cartoon.
right, colored, but overall, like that game to me looked probably was
The
most
way it was
amazing.
animated looked amazing.
Like I was like, oh man, I'll put money down on this right now.
Definitely, yeah. It looked really good.
Like the
I'm
animation.
not sure what the story is, but
like that animation looked like it was hand drawn every frame, like the old,
Yeah, yeah,
old
it
steampunk.
was really good, and it even had like kind of like some kind of like film grain to it. It seemed.
Right. Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful looking. I watched that trailer maybe 3 or 4 times, just kind of admiring all the little details.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. I think
uh,
that covers. Go ahead.
we got finish off Square Enix. One thing I'd like to kind of bring up is that they announced that Square Enix used to be like kind of like the king of RPGs. Then probably I'd say around the PlayStation 3 era, they kind of dropped off, but they kind of announced like, hey, we're making a new studio. The Tokyo RPG Factory was kind of probably like their biggest announcement to me. That they're making a new studio to kind of make all these old school style smaller RPGs, which I think will be interesting. Then they had the PC Gamer Conference,
Oh
which
yeah.
if you loved PC specs and numbers and all that, that was probably the conference for you. But it was like, to me, it was like 2 hours and 40 minutes of just not really seeing much, unfortunately. So I don't really
Because
have
they
a
didn't
whole.
have any cool games.
Well, I mean, they had.
Is there any new like anything from Blizzard coming out? They didn't show anything.
They didn't really show anything like that. The biggest thing I remember seeing is like, hey, and it was sponsored by AMD, the people that make like the processors and graphics cards and motherboards, and they're like, hey, we got this new graphics card that's supposed to be as good as the NVIDIA Titan.
Right.
And,
PC's Master Race. I guess not at the convention.
Right. It just. And they had an interesting style. It was kind of like this talk show style, like, oh, we're gonna sit a game developer down and talk to him for a few minutes. But it wasn't interesting because they were really playing softball with him. You could tell.
Mm-hmm.
There was, I forget who it was, and they asked him. It's like, oh, hey, you said this. What did you mean by that? And the guy dodged the question and never really pursued.
I always hate that kind of stuff. Like, especially for movies, like when like directors at like Comic-Con get asked a question and they dodge it. Like, I mean, I can tell you this, but I can't tell you this.
Right, and it wasn't even that. It was even a less graceful dodge. It was just like, oh well.
Is that a penny?
Yeah, I was like, hey, I know about that, but let me tell you about this first. They never got back to the original.
Okay, yeah, I get you.
So PC Gamer, I wouldn't say. I honestly think Square Enix, even though they had some really good games talking about that was probably the worst presentation, but PC Gamer wasn't really that far behind.
That's funny. All right, does that wrap up the expo?
That's all. I mean, there was 2 more days, but a lot of it was.
Notes.
But that I was just kind of wanted to focus on the presentations.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, I mean, the presentations itself weren't necessarily the best I've ever seen.
Right.
However, in terms of like what has been shown at this E3, I will say it's probably been the best E3 since 1997.
Wow. Damn.
And I watch E3s regularly, like it's almost a religion.
Wow.
And I really kind of got disheartened around 2005, and it just kind of slowly became worse and worse and worse each year. And I went into this one not expecting anything different, but not everything was perfect, but I was so far blown away by it. So we'll see how things come in the next few years, see if they deliver on their promises. But
all right.
Overall, it's actually got me excited. Funny story, I was at work when my Twitter mentioned Shenmue 3, and I could not believe it, to the point where I had to, use the restroom. I'm using air quotes.
Oh, yeah. That happened to me for the when they were doing Star Wars.
Right.
The Star Wars Celebration. I ran to the restroom to watch the trailer.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I was like, I gotta see if this is true, because.
Really quick, you can find us on Facebook at the Geekazoid Official, spelled with an X. We're also on YouTube under GeekastX and iTunes under GeekastX. We're also on Twitter at GeekastXSean, all at Steak Jake, GeekastX Ronnie, and Barker Studios. We're also on nerdoverload.com /authors /GeekastX. And then you can find Soberdwarf's YouTube channel and
For now, I would say follow me on Twitter at Soberdwarf. That's where I'm gonna start. When I start posting things, that's probably where it's going to be.
okay.
And kind of follow me off from there.
What about your Facebook page?
Facebook page is still kind of inactive at this point.
Oh, okay.
But you can, if you do want to follow me on Facebook, it is the Soberdwarf. And I will once I start getting videos out, and hopefully July, that's when it will be far more active. I just didn't want to start posting things just to not be able to follow up on them due to work.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. Yeah, I enjoy your videos. They're really informative.
Yeah,
But,
and
I definitely, hey geeks, definitely check those out when he gets them up.
And I'll hopefully, as soon as I start having free time off in the summer, hopefully between July and August, I'll start doing more streams. I'll be doing more Facebook posts. Hopefully I plan to get at least a video out every 2 weeks in July, but you know how life goes.
Yeah. Okay. And with that, we'll wrap up our E3 special. Alright, geeks. Catch you next time. And remember, it's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
Do you want me to end with a poem I wrote?
I mean, if you like.
So, this is something I wrote on June 16th, just to kind of, I thought of it, and I was, after seeing E3 and everything, after all this, I felt inspired, so this is kind of based on How the Grinch Stole Christmas, so if you get copyright claim.
Okay.
Sean, you know what I'm talking about now?
No, I'd go ahead.
All right, so every gamer down in LA liked E3 a lot, but Mason, who lived far east of LA, did not. Mason, he hated E3, the whole electronic convention. For AAA publishers, this man holds a lot of contention. It could be, perhaps, he has never been fucked. It could be the fact that most new games just sucked. But I think the reason, most likely of all, may have been that his heart was two sizes too small. Poo-poo to the noobs, he was bitchily humbling. They're finding out now that E3 is sucking. They're tuning in. I'll know just what they'll do. They'll open their mouths, and they'll hang open a minute or two. Then the noobs down in LA will all cry boo-hoo. E3 always sucks. It's the same every time, Mason frowned. And so he paused. Then Mason turned up the sound. And he did see a white bird fly across the screen. And then it revealed the scene. And then he saw a sword quite keen. But this wasn't some crap. Final Fantasy VII, said the poor sap. And every noob down in LA, the lean and the fat, was cheering, clapping, screaming. Mason was lulled flat. Then Shenmue 3 appeared on Kickstarter to boot. Then appeared Fallout in some giant power suit. And Mason, with his big ass planted firmly in his chair, sat thinking and thinking. Is this the old Square? It came without DLC. It came without a season pass. It came without microtransactions and shitty games en masse. And he thinked and he thunked until his thinker was sore. Then Mason thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe video games, he thought, I'm not meant to deplore. Maybe video games, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in LA they say that Mason's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And then the true meaning of E3 came through. And then Mason had a heart attack at the age of 32.
That was pretty awesome.
Thank you. That is the kind of things you can look forward to.